Welcome, fans, to the final episode, but it's a bonus episode and it's a good one of Countdown to In the Beginning Flex Wrestling, the historic card that is happening just days away. And it's a real fitting way to close out this series by having on the highly decorated veteran, a man who folks in the Northeast and in New York State certainly know. He is known as the Moonlight Sun, Mike Skyros. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Jack. Thank you for having me, man. I've been looking forward to this, looking forward to talk about Flex Wrestling. So thank you for giving us this time to talk about everything we got coming up.
Well, it's certainly been interesting to just lay out for the fans how stacked this show is going to be. Again, days away. But before we get into that, how did you first become involved in the pro wrestling business? Was that a childhood ambition of yours, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so I got into wrestling a little bit later than most people, being someone who grew up in the 90s. Of course, I was aware of it because it was big in popular culture at the time in a way that it hasn't been a lot of the other times. But I was on vacation with my family and I saw a trailer for a match between Undertaker and Jeff Hardy. Is actually a recap of the ladder match for the Undisputed Championship they had on Raw, and I was hooked. They both look like people I had seen in real life, and it was just very relatable for me. So I followed wrestling for a while. Fast forward a number of years, I find out that there is a school in my town that was headed by Zachary Springate III, and I jumped at the opportunity to train at that school. I've been at that school ever since, and through that school, I was able to become a member of the ring crew at 2CW Squared Circle Wrestling, which was a huge touring promotion here in New York, and everything branched off of that. So I was very lucky to be associated with some really knowledgeable people and companies right at the start.
Mm-hmm. Your Moonlight Sun moniker has a cool, I guess, enigmatic type vibe. How did you adopt that, and what exactly does it mean about you when you're in the ring or on the microphone?
Yeah, and I appreciate the way that you phrase that because I think that plays into a lot of it. It's the Moonlight Sun is someone who has changed a lot since I introduced that side of my personality. I can't take credit for the name. There's a gentleman named Jose Garcia, Jose Perez, whatever name that people know him as in New England. He worked for a promotion called XWA that I appeared at. I wear a mouth guard with fangs on it. And he thought because of that, maybe the shape of my face in certain ways and some of the moves I did do in the ring, like I'll hang upside down in the corner. He associated a lot of that with vampires, which is an easy connection to make. And he gifted me that name, and I gladly stole it from him. I've been using it ever since. And it was funny because the Moonlight Sun started out. I'm a big fan of rock music. One of my favorite bands is Guns N' Roses, and I was always interested in the way that Axl Rose presented himself. He's very much a rock star, very much into himself, very much wants things a certain way, and he forces everyone else to play by his rules as opposed to the opposite. So that was very much who I was at the beginning. Over time, it sunk into more of the character became more of my personality, and in certain ways it didn't. If you, a lot of people that follow me now, I paint my face, I tape up a certain way, I my gear has a certain presentation, and part of that is me, and of that is presenting someone that very much isn't me in my day to day life. And the enigmatic nature of the character is something I enjoy. I enjoy not being something or someone that people can very easily put a label on. And sometimes it's difficult because people will ask, "Well, who are you? What's your character?" All these things. And it is much less of a thing that I can tell you about, and it's more something you have to watch me in the ring. You have to watch me in interviews. You have to watch me speak to the audience and determine based on that what I am to you. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interesting, non-conventional spin. You primarily broke in 2014 for 2CW, and what a high level promotion that was, with such great minds such as Strangler Steve King, the Ayatollah bin Hameen, a really excellent proving ground for a guy to make his entry into the business. How did that process in that company influence your career moving forward? You must have got some takeaways from that you probably continue on to this day?
Absolutely. And it was a thing where I was given, it sounds like a very almost WWE answer, but I was given opportunity. And it was one of the most structured companies I've ever worked for, probably the most structured promotion I've ever worked for. And right off the bat, they set their standards very high. And that's one of the reasons why they have such acclaim, they have such renown, and their name carries a lot of weight to this day, to the point to where there is a 2CW event coming up sometime later this year. But they sold out everywhere they went, and it's because they expected a certain standard from talent. I I was not to be late. There were consequences if you were late. There were consequences you if your match went over the time that your match was allotted. There are consequences if you used language or took microphone time that was not given to you. So I learned very quickly to operate within a set of rules. Now, there are times for rules to be bent, there are times for rules to be broken, but being in the middle of all that structure, and then I was very fortunate to be around a lot of big name wrestlers, and there's still people I still get nervous to meet. I still get starstruck every once in a while. I'm sure we may or may not talk about me wrestling Minoru Suzuki last year, but that was a moment where I was very starstruck. But I was around Roddy Piper, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Terry Funk was the first person I ever met on an independent wrestling show. So I was very fortunate to be around these huge names in wrestling and to learn how to be normal around guys of that nature and be used to those settings. So I could go on, but I learned so much starting out there that really served me well, even much later in my career.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, they have that renown for a reason, and that respect for the business that maybe not all independents carry on. You, speaking of being on the road, paying dues, you've really built a career and a name for yourself through being on that road, paying dues, being involved in. There's very rewarding aspects of independent wrestling, and then there's not so rewarding aspects, which I'm sure very well. What keeps you motivated to apply and ply your trade?
What I try to tell people is what I tell myself is I try to remember why I started and what I want out of this. At the end of it, I love professional wrestling. It's something that I've been able to enjoy and relate to and really plug into in a way that I've never been able to relate to any other art form, entertainment form, sport, however you want to phrase it. And I was very lucky to be able to get on the road. The very first person to take me on the road was a gentleman named Brute Van Slyke. He was also known as Punisher Van Slyke. And I have to give him all the credit because I opened up everything out of that. But to your point, there are lots of hard days. There are a lot of trips that suck. Cars break down. You're low on money. The food on the road sucks. Sometimes you're in a car with people that you don't enjoy that much. And but on the other side of that, there's a lot of highs. I've had incredible trips going on the roads with friends. I've met incredible people. I've had incredible experiences. I've been able to travel places I wouldn't have been before on someone else's dime. And it's just, there's a whole spectrum of experience. And we're very fortunate to get to do a lot of things that the person that works the 9 to 5 job or that doesn't engage in wrestling or doesn't get to uh, have that outlet gets to do.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned sharing the ring with Suzuki, but you've also been in the ring with, and this is just a few: Eddie Edwards, Carlito, Matt Cardona. Who's at the top of your list right now for desired opponents in the future?
That's a really good question. And it's an answer that's changing all the time because our landscape in wrestling changes all the time. The guy right now, I'd say, is Killer Cross. He's the hottest talent that I think is available on the independents currently. He is the person that I think would be the hardest test, and it's not easy. I'm sure wrestling him would be very taxing physically, very taxing mentally, and would be a challenge in a whole other way. But these are the people that I want to be in the ring with so that I can continue to grow and not become stagnant. So he would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, man, would that ever be a barn burner? You were just recently, I guess it was yesterday, if memory serves me correct. You were ranked in the PWI 500, and for old heads like me that who grew up on the magazines, that was a big deal, and I still think it's a very big deal because there's many talents that are great that aren't included in that. But what does that mean to you to be so recognized in such a prestigious publication?
It's it's a real pleasure, man, because like I said, I love wrestling and it's always been a professional goal of mine to be included on that list and to improve on my ranking from last year is very cool. And I got, it's a very simple thing, but my picture's in there this year. I think that rules. Uh, I read a lot of the magazines as well. I still read some of the magazines, and that sort of recognition is great. And for someone out of Syracuse, New York, I'll just be straightforward with it. We don't always get a lot of the publicity that other regions get. New England is a very hot region. Philadelphia is a very hot region. Different places on the West Coast and the South have popped off. But to be someone from Syracuse, New York, to be able to put a little shine on the area where I'm from, and hopefully through getting some recognition in publications like this, be able to tell people about the other guys from my area that I think are really talented, that can really contribute, that means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Syracuse and upstate and that territory, for lack of another term, you've been on the road for like 10 years now plus, and you've seen how a very interesting time to come into the business really, and you've seen ways in which the independent scene has evolved, and I'm sure there's other ways that it's devolved in some areas. How would you characterize that process that you've seen in the changes and the upside and the downsides over that decade plus?
So the way I'll say this is I think that the independent landscape is very good for the artist right now. And it's a double-edged sword because you get art that not as many people like, you get art that a lot of people enjoy. But what I mean by that is there are very few restrictions in most places. I spoke earlier about some of the parameters at 2CW. People, for the most part, don't get fined, suspended, fired, etc., for going over the time or for doing every move they've ever seen and really going all out in the first match. And sometimes that serves the card very well. Sometimes, in my opinion, it doesn't. I think certain things have been lost in terms of structuring a card, in terms of sometimes people being held accountable personally and professionally for certain things in wrestling. I'm going to sound like the oldest dude ever, but when I started, there were a lot of guys in the locker room that would pull you aside and be like, dude, what are you doing? Or be like, hey, don't do that. And even whether you agreed or disagreed with them, you took that criticism and you took it with a certain amount of respect. Now I feel as though even if you are providing constructive criticism, if you provide it to the wrong person in the wrong tone, it is your name being plastered online. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. So, and I do think that there is that coincides with the rise of the people being in charge of wrestling companies not necessarily being from a wrestling background. A lot of them are fans that have, through whatever means, found their way into a certain amount of money, and they decide what I want to do with my money is I want to put on a professional wrestling card. And I'm a firm believer that whoever is in charge of the promotion, whoever owns the promotion, gets the final say. So if you want me to do XYZ on the card, that is your prerogative. I'll do it to the best of my ability. But there are a lot of times where that happens, and in my wrestler brain, whether it's right or wrong, I think we could do this a better way. There are less of those guys that were wrestlers, managers, or grew up in some other aspect of wrestling that are in charge of companies, and I would like to see more of that because I think the wrestler run promotions oftentimes are the better ones, for lack of a better term.
Absolutely. Let's talk Finger Lakes Extreme Wrestling. Man, we're getting close to the inaugural event. The buzz is palpable. But I wanted to ask, how did you get involved and what are your specific goals in this new company?
Yeah. So I was messaged by Flex Wrestling Management. It was a surprise because I didn't know what they wanted to book me for. I had no idea that this company was being formed or being talked about or anything. They messaged me one evening. I was at the gym. They're like, "Hey, are you available for so and so?" I said, "I am. What are you thinking?" And they're like, "Well," and they laid out the idea of Flex Wrestling to me. I think that sounds really cool. I would love to be a part of that. Let me know what I can do. And I believe that I am brought in initially to help provide a good match on the card. We'll talk more about my specific match, my opponent later, but I think my role is I am uh, time tested and proven to be able to do that, and that is my role on the card tonight. Because I'm not a local, there aren't a lot of people near the Bison Ranch that I've encountered that I'm going to be able to specifically sell tickets to. But I think there will be a lot of people that leave the Bison Ranch knowing my name. And my goals in Flex Wrestling are the same as to every promotion I walk into. There's not a championship, but I want to be the best guy there. I want to be the guy that people are talking about. I want to be the guy that has the best match, that sells the most merch, and that makes the most money at this promotion. And I think that anyone that doesn't want to do that is foolish. I challenge anybody on the card, Sean Carr, HC Loke, Rhino, Chael Connors, anyone on the card to best me at that. And if they can, more power to them.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of your opponent, Shale Connors, he's an individual that I've spoken to in this series, and he's another guy really making a name for himself on the scene. And I'm assuming right now there isn't a heavyweight championship, but I'm assuming that there will be. How are you approaching this match, given your stated goal to not only put on a good solid match, but also what it could mean in terms of future rankings for that championship that we can only assume is forthcoming in Flex?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a win in that match would put me in a really good standing for any championship considerations, whether it be a tournament or whatever else. But I watched your interview with Chael actually, and it's interesting because I agreed with a lot of what he had to say. It is the matchup stylistically is a clash of styles, and it's a clash of approaches as well. He spoke about when you're in the ring with me, Mike Skyros, you have to earn everything. Nothing is handed to you easily at all. And I was flattered by that. You know, I don't want to be a stepping stone. I don't want to be a guy that's easily walked over. Sometimes I'm very hard to work with, and I think it's for the right reasons. So when it comes to Chael Connors, I'm gonna test him how I haven't even tested him before. We've been in the ring a few times. I know what he brings to the table. I think very highly of him. Are him and I going to be getting lunch before the event? Are we going to be taking selfies after the event? I highly doubt it. But when he gets in the ring with me, he knows he's getting in there with the absolute best. And I know I'm going to drag every ounce of effort that I can out of him because the paying audience deserves it. I am very much of the philosophy, especially these days, things are not getting any cheaper. Things are only getting more expensive. A dollar has never been harder to come by. And time is valuable as well. These people are spending their evening on a Friday night where they could be out doing anything in the world. They're spending their money that they could be spending on anything in the world to come to the Bison Ranch to see us. And I can't control what goes on in other matches, but I can control what goes on in mine. And I am going to guarantee you that the amount of money you spend on your ticket you're going to get double, triple, quadruple the value in what you see with me and Chael in that ring. That's a promise.
Mm-hmm. And I think he's not, to say the least, taking you lightly, and all the stops are going to be thrown out because this is the inaugural event, and there's so much on the line. I think you've got the potential to really steal the show. But you mentioned earlier on social media that you wanted to talk about the entire card itself, and since this is the last episode of the countdown to the show, again, we're just days away. Fans, good segue here. Go to flexwrestling.com before tomorrow night being Thursday as we tape this, and get your tickets because they are going fast, and that is a shoot. But why don't we start off with the top of the card, and I'll just run through the matches and get your insights, starting with Julio Diamante versus Carmelo Lee.
Yeah, Julio is a guy that I'm familiar with. I've been in the ring with him in a tag team setting. I've not been in the ring with him in a single setting, but he is a guy that is sneaking up on a lot of people, in my opinion, because he is not someone I try to know myself. I'm very loud on social media. I make sure that my name is out there and what I'm doing is at least public for people to know. Julio lets his actions do the talking. I think he's extremely athletically talented. He is a guy like a lot of those ground zero guys that is very hardworking, that can do a lot of different things in the ring, and is always adding to his game. And he's a guy that I have a lot of respect for in terms of what he does wrestling wise. Carmelo, he is a guy, and him and his partner are gonna maybe not feel so great about this, but he's a guy that's very undersized. But he is a guy with a lot of athletic talent as well, but in a different way. Julio is more of like, I'd say like an AJ Styles type build where he can do a little bit of everything. He's big enough to where if he's wrestling a smaller guy like Carmelo, maybe he relies on his power game a bit more. But he is also athletic enough to put some of those more high flying moves in there. Carmelo, in my opinion, is pure high flyer, and he almost has to be at his size. He's a guy that I've seen from Carmelo, that is, from the very start, really attack wrestling and really try to get everything he can out of wrestling. And I love that for him. I hope he keeps going. And I think if he can keep learning, keep working on his game, and put on a little bit of size, he could be a real problem in the whole Northeast.
Mm. Next is one of major interest to those of us old school fans that really appreciate tag team wrestling, and that's the High Seas versus, speaking of tag team wrestling, the legendary Johnny Kashmere and JP Grayson. Who do you like in that encounter?
Yeah, so the fact that Kashmere has been able to have this second life in his career with the Graysons is not by accident. Dude's a hustler, and I mean that as a compliment. Dude has been relevant for decades in wrestling now, literal decades, and he's a guy that can keep up with all the newer guys in terms of moves and all of that, but he has that veteran caginess to where he can pull the wool over your eyes. He can pull a little trick out of his sleeve, and if you are an inexperienced or a young wrestler who doesn't know how to deal with those things, he can really use that to his advantage. And JP is a guy that he's very in shape. He's very young looking, but he's been around the game for a minute too. And I've seen him and his brother really go toe to toe with all the best in tag team wrestling. Like guys like Sent to Slaughter come to mind. I won't go down the full list, but he's a guy that's a real problem as well. That is, in my opinion, ruthless in that ring. He looks like kind of a friendly guy, but he's a real dog in the ring. But I speak about Kashmere having all those tricks up his sleeve. When it comes to the High Seas, it's not really going to work on those guys. Those guys have been around the block and then some. Cloudy is a guy that, in my opinion, is extremely underrated. He's a guy that brings a ton to the table. I I've had some of my best matches with Cloudy, and he's a guy that is always he's always going to give you your money's worth entertainment wise, and he is able to do a lot of different things in that ring. And then his Nick Ando, he's the guy I won my first championship from in 2CW, which we referenced earlier. Ando is a guy that is also he could really lean back on the things he's done in the past, but he's really continued to push himself. I hope I see him break out the top rope Frankensteiner that he's been employing lately. I love that. I'm a big Scott Steiner guy, so seeing him break that out is really cool. And then as a tag team, I've seen those guys have incredible matches with a variety of opponents, including Black and Yellow, who are from my hometown. And I think though that combination of four is going to put on an incredible match, and that's one I'm going to be paying attention to for sure.
I agree. Last episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing the man himself, the legendary ECW original, the ROH World Tag Team Champion, HC Loke, and he talked about the concept behind the Mud Creek Stampede Scramble, and that really intrigued me. But what are your thoughts on that style of match and the competitors therein that you're following?
What I enjoy about matches like that is seeing. I'm a big believer that styles make fights. I believe that applies super heavily to wrestling. And when you have a scramble like that, you have guys from different backgrounds, guys with different skill sets. I love seeing the combinations that happen in the ring. I love seeing matchups that you're probably not going to see in other places or may not see in other places because of whatever factors. So I want to see. You got all these paints. I want to see what they paint. I want to see what picture they paint in that ring. And I think it has the potential to be one of the best matches, but it also has the potential to be one of the most chaotic matches. And I want to see what direction it goes.
Now, speaking of veterans and people that have really been a cornerstone of the scene in upstate New York, we've got I've described it as the teacher versus student encounter, but really it's two teachers in Maddock who provided very eloquent comments on this series against Colin Delaney, who everyone is aware of from his national run with one of the big companies. Man, this is going to be an interesting encounter because Colin has said that he hopes that Maddock has absorbed everything that he's taught him and then some to be the better man.
Yeah, it was funny because when you started with the teacher versus student analogy, the first thing my brain went to was which the next thing you went to, it is a teacher versus teacher. First, I would really like to give credit to Maddox for what he has built with Ground Zero Wrestling and the infrastructure he's laid for people to learn, for people to have I don't want this to get taken out of context in terms of like a safe space. I mean, a safe space in wrestling in terms of somewhere you can go and train and get a variety of influences, be taught, in a very positive environment. And he's done a lot for the state, and I really like to legitimately commend him for that. I really respect that a ton. And Matt is the guy that I think very highly of. I've been his enemy a lot of the time in the ring. I've been his friend a few times in the ring, but he's a guy that I think has offered a lot inside and out of the ring. But I think he has even more to offer. And then Colin, everyone is going to speak about his WWE run, obviously, because it's the WWE. But I think branding Colin with just what he did in the WWE is a disservice to everything he has done before and since. Colin is one of the best wrestlers in the state. Colin is a guy who's been one of the best wrestlers in the state the entire time that I've been around and before I've been around. Colin is a guy that he's really challenged me in the ring. He's given me some of my toughest matches. And I'm really interested to see what Colin will pull out that might surprise Maddock or might throw him off his game for two people that have been around each other so much and that know so much about each other.
This one is interesting to use the term stylistically, but David versus Goliath, and an absolutely monster of a man, Pat Sawyer versus Ciaran Rain. And I understand that there's been some physicality already, and this is going to be a real test for Mr. Rain. What are your thoughts?
Man, speaking of styles, maybe fights, I hope Ciaran Rain has health insurance. I hope he packs some Advil and like a couple ice packs because I've been in the ring with both these guys, but being in the ring with Pat Sawyer, when you're in the ring with someone that big, something as simple as a suplex or a body slam is that much more impactful because the guy's almost 7 feet tall. It's like falling off the roof of your house almost. Like that's what it feels like. Uh, Pat is not just a big man, but I think in this match, his size and his strength are going to be the toughest things to overcome. When it comes to Ciaran Rain, he's got to rely on his quickness and, more importantly, his striking. He's a guy that throws a lot of kicks from a lot of different angles, and a well-placed kick can knock down the biggest guy. And Pat Sawyer is a lot less daunting and a lot less big if you kick him in the head and he's lying on his back. So if Ciaran Rain is looking to find a path to success, I feel like that's his only option because otherwise Pat Sawyer is going to choke slam him from way up here and it could be a real short night.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Very, very insightful comments. Now, the first match on the first show is HC Loke against Price Pure Gold. I'm notwithstanding all the flowers, as the kids say, to HC Loke, I'm very impressed with Price Pure Gold in terms of his attitude, his work ethic, and what he can do in the ring. But Mr. Loke also has to prove that he's there for a reason. He's out in front of his hometown fans, and he's going to be throwing out all the stops. And I'm sure Mr. Pure Gold will have a test. But how do you see this one turning out?
It's funny because Price Pure Gold is not the biggest fan of yours truly. That is his weight to bear. And while he may not have a lot of nice things to say about me, and he's had a lot of things to say about when my match was the main event match, he thought that he should have been in the main event. I disagree. But what I will say is he has done a great job of promoting the show. He has done a great job of presenting himself on social media, talking to the audience. And he has always been someone that has worked very hard to get where he's at and retain the things that he's gotten. But I think he should focus on what he has in front of him as opposed to what me or someone else on the card may be doing because he's in the ring with HC Loke, a guy that has truly seen and done it all. He's a guy that has taught a lot of the best. He is the guy that has wrestled a lot of the best. And he is a guy that, outside of the ring, I'm very thankful that he has taken a leadership role in wrestling. When someone like him gives the stamp for someone like me to be a part of an event that he has had such a heavy hand with crafting, I take that as a compliment. And I've worked very hard to get recognition from guys like that. But when it comes to HC Loke, he's a guy that's always going to be a problem because he's been around everyone and everything and seen everything done in that ring. So there isn't much, if anything, that he's going to be unprepared for.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the main event that has so many people talking about it, and you want to talk about staples in the Northeast cornerstones, if you will. You can't leave out Sean Carr from the conversation, man. What Mr. Loke and I, in our discussion last episode, talked about all the tools that Sean Carr has in his toolbox, so to speak. And he's not a small guy, but then he's up against a legit bona fide legend. I know that's thrown around a lot, but definitely applies to the War Machine Rhino. And Mr. Carr said that there are going to be fans that are expecting or wanting him to be gored and knocked out of his boots right away. And he's saying That's not going to happen. So you want to talk about a slobber knocker and an excellent inaugural main event. This is it. What are your thoughts?
First of all, it's funny because this is the match that booted Chael and myself out of the main event spot. So I'm definitely going to be watching. I'm definitely going to be doing everything in my power to outwork and out wrestle these guys. And Rhino doesn't know me, but Sean definitely does, and he knows that about me. And I think he appreciates that about me. Sean is a guy that's been super involved in my career from the start. I can't tell the story of my career without including Sean Carr, and I think very highly of Sean Carr. It's funny because Sean will often present himself. Sean is a good guy outside of the ring, but he does get a certain enjoyment out of uh, out of maybe taking that gore away from the fans. Maybe not giving the fans the satisfaction of him getting gored in half by Rhino. And it's funny too. Sean's not a small guy. Sean's probably like 6'1", probably about 250 right now, but he's out there doing moonsaults. He's a humble dude a lot of the time. He'll downplay like, oh brother, I'm just another wrestler. But no, Sean's a guy that has a very full toolbox in that ring, and he's gonna need all of them because Rhino's been a champion in ECW, Rhino's been a champion in the WWE, Rhino's been a champion in TNA. He's been a champion everywhere he's gone, and at a very young age for a reason. He is absolutely a bona fide legend. He is absolutely still a guy who's an absolute problem in that ring. When a guy has that much force, that much explosiveness, that much strength, and he's been able to use those tools against guys in all of those companies and be champion. So Rhino is an awesome guy to have on the card, but seeing him and really seeing what he does in the ring, especially against Sean Carr, is going to be a treat for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that just fans, as you've heard, tops off what is going to be again. This is legit history in the making. It's not hyperbole, and we're just days away. Friday, September 26, 2025, at the Mud Creek Bison Ranch, a facility that is made for pro wrestling, state of the art. They're already referring to it as the Flex Zone. I know that preparations are underway as we speak, but you don't want to just show up. You'll probably get a ticket, but you want your ticket now. So go to flexwrestling.com and pick it up. And as we've talked about, man, those fans that are disenchanted with the current product, that are maybe not happy with paying $14,000 for a ticket, support independent wrestling, support Flex Wrestling. You can take the whole family. You're going to be entertained from bell to bell, and it's not going to break your pocketbook. So if you're an old school fan or a fan who's looking to expand their repertoire and their love of the sport, check this event out, flexwrestling.com. Mike, I want to thank you. It's been a very, very interesting conversation, like I knew it would be. I'm looking forward to meeting you and getting some comments from you post match on Friday. Wish you all the luck, but final thoughts on anything to do with Flex Wrestling, or maybe you want to leave a final word for your opponent, Mr. Connors.
You know what, Jack? Like in the ring, I like to over deliver, so I will give you all of that. First of all, thank you for helping us get the word out about this event. I've really enjoyed seeing the all hands on deck effort from everybody to make sure that the word about this show gets out and we can make this show packed in front of a full house and make it the best we can be. So thank you, truly. When it comes to where you can find the Moonlight Sun Mike Skyros, I am on all socials at Mike Skyros. You can find me on Blue Sky, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And if there's anything I'm forgetting, I'm sure you look up Pro Wrestling Tees, you can find me there. And in terms of Chael Connors, I hope that you understand why I am the way I am in terms of what I do in that ring and what I do leading up to this match. I am nobody special. I am not someone who's been to the WWE. I'm just a wrestler who works very hard and thinks that I bring a certain amount to the table. And I want to see guys like you do better than me and reach your full potential. And I'm going to drag every ounce of effort and ability out of you in that ring Saturday. And like I said in my promo, if you beat me, you have something more valuable than every handshake and every selfie in that room. You have a victory over the Moonlight Sun, Mike Skyros. And as I end my promos, I'll end this. That is all killer and no filler.
Well, no way better to end the series on this. Fans, once again, go to flexwrestling.com. Looking forward to seeing all the Cheap Heat production fans there in the Northeast, in Quebec, in Ontario, Michigan, you name it. Make the trip to the Mud Creek Bison Ranch. You're not going to regret it. Mike, thanks again very much, and we'll see you Friday as well, sir.
Deal. See you
Thank
there.
you for watching this video. Please give it a like if you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Cheap Heat Productions. Don't forget to hit the notification button and you won't miss any of our upcoming interviews, recurring programs,